Hey, it's Lee for On Your Marks Wrestling, and I'm here with a review of Supercard of Honor. Now, this review is a little bit late for two reasons. The first being that ROH was having major issues with their streaming service. It sounds like they were having server issues. Basically, I just couldn't watch the show for the first 3 days that it was supposed to be available. So this originally aired on April 7th. By the time that they did figure out all their server issues, or maybe they just kind of didn't have that much demand, I caught a case of death. It wasn't actually death, it was probably the flu, but it sure felt like death. So that kind of slowed me down. So I'm going to be referring to my notes a hell of a lot because I don't remember everything, but I did write a lot of notes. So I'm going to go through the card and tell you what I felt at the end of the day. I will say that in general, announcing on this card was really good. I really enjoyed Colt Cabana. They do make reference to a lot of things that are like real-ish. It makes it feel a little more real. So I liked it a lot. A couple references were pretty solid in there too. So the show starts. We get a video package with a quick promo of the matches. They announce that there's a crowd of 6,000 people, and it's the biggest crowd in Ring of Honor history. I was surprised at that number. Maybe I just assumed it would be higher. Look at my hair. It's going nuts. Again, I was super sick. That's my excuse. First match is Chucky T, who's accompanied by Beretta, who's got an injured arm, versus Jonathan Gresham. Never heard of Jonathan Gresham. Barely heard of Chucky T. I saw him on one New Japan thing. Match starts with really good chain wrestling. Then there's a dive to the outside where Gresham overshoots the dive and basically does a faceplant, kind of like Lita did, but he went over the person. I shouldn't hit my table so much. Chucky T and Beretta hug a lot. It's kind of getting that Rougeau hug heat. Then there's a cool springboard into a power bomb, but not power bomb because it's converted into tornado DDT spot by Gresham. I thought that looked really cool. And then, did I say Gresham? Maybe it's Gresham. Gresham attempts a submission, but gets rolled up for the win. So Chucky T goes over in that match. Again, I'm referring to my notes a lot. I apologize if I'm not looking at the camera. Next match we have is Punishment Martinez versus Ishii. There's a weird voodoo guy who interrupts the commentators at the beginning. Apparently he's linked to Martinez. Martinez has a really cool, spooky intro. It looks like, what's that kids movie that just came out this year? Anyways, it's about death and whatnot. It looked really cool. He came out of a casket and stuff. Cool music too. There's a corner dive. Again, kind of a suicide dive, but over the corner post by Martinez. And again, he overshoots his opponent and does a faceplant. That's two kind of dangerous dives in two matches. There's a top rope spinning heel kick that looked really cool by Martinez. Ishii hits an impressive superplex. I wrote superplex light because it's from the second rope. Lots of hard hitting in this one. One of Martinez's kicks seemed to hit pretty hard. And then Martinez hits his South of Heaven choke slam for the win over Ishii. I kept writing good things about Martinez in this match. I really enjoyed watching him. He's just got a presence about him. He also has a cool voice, though he's not the best talker from the little bit of interviews I've seen. I was like, man, that guy is like just exactly what WWE looks for. But then I looked at his age and I was like, man, that guy's already 35 or 36 years old. I don't see them like... If he's ever going to go there, he better go soon. I know I always kind of revert to going like, wouldn't they work in WWE? But that's because I watch WWE the most. It's just my natural reaction. Then we have Kota Ibushi versus Hangman Page. Right from the get-go, you know this is going to be a good match. I wrote, you have a near-death spot for Page with an over-rotated German suplex from the barricade by Ibushi. So, yeah, Page is on the barricade, and Ibushi jumps up there and just suplexes him, but he lands directly on his head. Just, it looked rough. There's a golden moonsault, which is one of the prettiest moves. It's always nice when Ibushi lands that. Paige does a golden moonsault too. There's a buckshot lariat by Paige. There's a big palm strike exchange. I have trouble with that word. Ibushi hits the Golden Star Power Bomb, then a straight jacket German, and then a golden knee for the win. So it's kind of, there's a lot more to this match than I'm mentioning here, but those are kind of the highlights. Good match. I really enjoyed it. Then we have a women's match, and it's for, excuse me, winning the Women of Honor tournament, I believe. Some weirdness in this. They announced that the Scream Queen is there. I don't know who Scream Queen is, but apparently she's like historically an important woman in Ring of Honor. Sakai attacks the bigger Klein right away. Klein is much bigger. Klein, as you would expect, is hitting big power moves. Many Women of Honor finalists actually surround the ring. There's a kind of sloppy missed moonsault by Sakai that they kind of sell as having to maybe hit. If anything, her forehead might have hit someone in the might have hit Klein in the ribs at most. It looked pretty bad. And she tries to transition into an octopus submission, but Klein kind of misses that she's doing that, falls to a knee. But then the good news is there's a pretty brutal looking DDT landed by Sakai. Klein really sold it well. But because the flow into it didn't really work, the crowd barely reacts when she gets the 3 from that pin. And then the celebration after the match was really awkward. I don't know what was going on, but there's some timing or miscommunication going on. It felt like it should have been a much bigger moment, and it just wasn't. Man, I'm feeling weak right now. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing this? What's going on? We have the next match, which is the Young Bucks and Flip Gordon versus SoCal Uncensored, which is Scorpio Sky, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian. It's a ladder match for the 6-man championship. I'm going to skip a lot of spots here, but it's lots of dives. Excuse me. There's a cutter by Kazarian onto Flip Gordon from the top of the ladder. It looked really cool. There's a cool avoidance of the ladder by Flip Gordon where he's just basically kind of doing nip-ups in different ways. There's a spot where the Bucks launch Flip Gordon for a 450 onto a ladder-draped Daniels. Yeah, that was cool. Nick Jackson jumps from a rope to 3 different ladders to another rope for a tope con hilo. Cool. Like, there aren't too many people in the world that can do these things. It's just cool. You have the Bucks going for the belt when the Kingdom interferes. The Kingdom is dispatched by the other 2 teams. You get a spot with the 6 guys that are actually in the match on ladders. You also get dual 450s on through guys that are on tables by the Bucks team versus onto the SoCal team. Eventually, Daniels manages to climb the ladder and get the belt. The Kingdom come in, kind of steal the belt, and run away. I honestly thought that the Kingdom didn't need to be here. This match was really, really good on its own. I'm amazed at the age of some of these guys. Like, Christopher Daniels is like 45 years old. He's doing crazy stuff. Kazarian's must be 40 now. I feel like he's pretty old, and he's doing amazing stuff, and these other guys are all doing great work. So we get another match. We get the Motor City Machine Guns versus Beer City Bruiser and Brian Malonis, who I'd never heard of. And they're going against Luke and PJ Hawk. And I feel like this is where my lack of ROH knowledge really comes in, because I actually never really heard of any of these. Like, I'd heard some names, but I didn't know any of these people by just looking at them. And I know some of these people are kind of not legendary, but well-known in ROH. So I'll get better at this. I wrote nothing particularly special here. I wrote that the big guys win with a top rope splash after a suplex, which looked really good. I will say Beer City Bruiser moves, they made really emphasize this fact, but it's true. He does move better than a guy who looks like that should. Then we got a tag team match between Jay Lethal and Tanahashi versus the Briscoes. There's a Tanahashi doing the Karate Kid pose thing where one of the Briscoes just spits in his face. I still don't know the Briscoes apart. I think the bald one is Jay. I think. Lethal takes a lot of damage early on in this match. I thought one of the interesting dynamics was that Tanahashi was kind of willing to break the rules a little bit, whereas Lethal was kind of always following the rules, which, I don't know, I just always thought of Tanahashi as more of a pure heart. Maybe it's just me. But he was like raking the back, and he pulled a guy out of the ring and did a few things. Lethal hits a lethal injection, which is cool springboard type stunner. But he only gets a near fall, but it's a really good near fall where pretty much everyone in the audience more or less bought it. Great. Eventually you get I wrote Doomsday Device on Lethal for the win. So I don't know if that's their regular finisher for the Briscoes or if that's just the one they use this time. Looks cool. I love the Doomsday Device. It's existed forever, and there's a reason for it, that it's still around, because it's that cool. There's a video package for the build of Kenny King versus Silas Young. Austin Aries shows up. He kind of grabs a mic and announces that he's challenging the winner of the match because he wants another belt. And he comes down to do color. Aries is great. He always is. Aries, if I had to make a top 5 wrestlers in the world right now list, I think Aries would be in my top 5. I really like the guy. Excuse me. Silas Young and Kenny King. It's a last man standing match. King uses a last chancery-like move. And Aries says he gave him permission to use it, but he didn't expect the technique to be that awful. No wonder it's not finishing him off. So he's kind of protecting his move. I really appreciated that. King is thrown through a table, which kind of gives the edge to Silas Young for a little while. Eventually, though, he drops Silas sideways onto a turnbuckle. It's a spot that I first saw, I think it was in a Charlotte match. I'm sure it existed before, but the first time I saw it was Charlotte Flair, I think, did it to someone. It looked really cool. There's trash cans and ladders introduced. There's a lot of stuff going on. At one point, the Beer City Bruiser interferes. Just after that, though, Kenny King manages to hit a shooting star press through a table to the outside. It looked absolutely perfect. You could not hit this move any better than King did. Just a perfect move. And then this is a last man standing, which means whoever can't get up for the 10 count loses. So there's a spot soon after that where King is trying to get up, but his feet are under the ring, and he just cannot get up to save his life. And Silas Young just manages to get up on 9. And then you see when King finally pops out, you see that there's a zip tie around his feet, and you realize that the Beer City Bruiser had been under the ring and had tied him up. So there's a lot of cheating going on. So then there's King comes out, and he's kind of helpless because his feet are tied together. So the Beer City Bruiser and Silas Young start beating him. And then Aries said, well, I wasn't going to interfere with the match, but now that it's over, he runs down to the ring, through the ring, does his dive, which is not a second rope hole dive, but a first rope hole dive. And for some reason, it just makes it that much better. Hits both guys, and that's kind of the end of picks up the belt, kind of throws it at him. It was a cool ending. I actually thought it worked out great. The next match wasn't much of a match, but it had a bit of story going on. So it's Cheeseburger and Eli, is it Isom? I think I wrote Isom. Yeah. Versus the Dogs. And these dogs attack and take out Isis right away. Hit him on the knee. Hit the post, but hit him on the knee and took out his knee. Bully Ray comes in, says if Cheeseburger can't find a partner, he's going to have to throw this thing out. Cheeseburger kind of begs him to be his partner, says, hey, just do one last match. You should be my partner. Bully Ray agrees. They run wild for a while, do the headbutt to the crotch, do everything. And then Bully Ray says they get the table thing. And Cheeseburger is really excited to do it. And then Bully Ray grabs him by the throat, changes his expression immediately, and chokeslams him. Then he cuts a promo on Cheeseburger and other high flyers saying they're destroying the business. They're a waste of time. At one point, some other guy comes out. I forget his name. I'm sorry. Who's supposed to be like a head guy there. And Bully Ray just keeps threatening him. He threatens to pile drive Cheeseburger, which is illegal in the state of Louisiana, which would get the show ended right away, would kind of ruin the rest of the show. And he finishes the whole thing. He's saying he's too good for this. And he ends the whole thing by putting on his Hall of Fame ring from the WWE. I actually thought this was a really good promo. The threat to pile drive him to end the show was just really kind of a nice cherry on top. I thought it was perfect. I really enjoyed it, actually. And I've not liked anything I've ever seen Cheeseburger in, so that's cool. There's a small video package about the Cody versus Kenny Omega rivalry. And then we get the match. I got lots of notes here. So Bernard the Business Bear is unmasked at the beginning. You don't really get to see who it is. I feel like everybody saw who it is, but I don't know people that well, so I didn't get to see it. Cody fakes the is it Shattered Dreams, where you're gonna kick someone in the balls in the corner like Goldust. Basically fakes being Goldust and then gives the crowd the finger. Giving the finger is kind of overplayed in every other wrestling promotion in WWE. If I don't want to be a WWE homer, but I do appreciate that they don't give the finger all the damn time. Like, doing it once per show would be so effective, but everybody gives the finger all the time. It's crazy. Maybe it's just me. There's a spot where Cody intentionally poorly cheats with Brandy, giving him a foreign object, which distracts the ref so that Cody can give a low blow to Kenny Omega. Thought that was clever. Brandy gets involved a little bit with like just smacking Omega or kicking him when he's down. At one point, Omega, he's selling a bit of everything, but he's selling his back, and he can't pick up, or he doesn't quite fully put up a table. So the table's left on his side, and Cody drops him on the table, similar to what they do on the guardrail. But the table is much more narrow. It looked really painful because it's a sideways table, I should explain. Omega tries to V-trigger Cody, but actually V-triggers Brandy through a table off the apron. That was cool. He goes and checks on her, and when he comes back into the ring, Cody hits a crossroads for a near fall. Flip Gordon comes in and helps Brandy to the back, so that adds a little bit of story there. Omega hits a bunch of knees to Defiant Cody and a V-trigger for a near fall. And then Cody hits a vertebreaker for a near fall as well. I've not seen the vertebreaker before. That looks cool. I like it. There's a ref bump and then a double crossbody. And then the Young Bucks run into the ring. And there's the whole who are they going to team with kind of a debate. And it looks like they decide to super kick Cody. So they go to super kick Cody, and he ducks it, and they hit Omega. And then Cody gets the win by hitting a crossroads on the kind of already stunned Omega. The Bucks go to kind of help Omega up later on, and Omega just kind of shoves their hands away, not knowing if they're actually with him. That's cool. I liked it. And then the final match of the night is Dalton Castle versus Marty Scurll. Now, at this point, the crowd does sound like it's a little bit fatigued. But this match is good enough that it really starts picking up halfway through this match, and the crowd picks back up. there's a little giving the finger exchange, so I already made a point of it. But I thought this one was better. So Skrull does the whole cranking it up thing, and then Dalton Castle just reaches into his pants and like really looks for it and pops it out. I just thought it kind of worked. Skrull attacks the arm early, and that becomes a running storyline because the whole thing is Castle's really strong. He really is strong. And Skrull is kind of more devious, so that's kind of the running storyline. At one point, Skrull back body drops Castle onto some steps. That looked rough. Just because it's like 45-degree steps, it's not like 2 steps. Excuse me. What did I write here? Oh, yeah. Skrull hits an impressive pump handle Yushi Goroshi. I always have trouble saying that one. And then we get Skrull kind of going to the outside. He has his friend in the crowd, Nick Aldis, who's the current NWA champion. Aldis hands him these little... They're not... they're like wire clippers. Basically like pliers, but with a cutting edge. And Skrull goes and cuts off the turnbuckle cover. But it's not actually used for a while. And early on, I should have mentioned that Skrull also introduced an umbrella to the ring, but that wasn't used either. Yeah, there's lots of back and forth. Skrull's on the outside for a while after hitting some big moves. He goes under the ring, and he's looking for something, and he's really struggling to find it, and you can see he's getting frustrated. Castle does the right thing at this point, so he goes out there, even though he's tired, and hits Skrull a couple more times to justify Skrull staying on the outside, and Skrull keeps looking for his thing, which turns out to be a bag of powder. Skrull comes into the ring with the bag of powder, and Castle kicks him in the hand, which causes Skrull to throw the powder into his eyes, his own eyes. The blinded Skrull grabs the ref and does the finger snap thing on both hands of the ref. I thought that was funny. And I thought it really worked well. Because Castle hits his finisher, which I believe is called the Bangarang. So it's basically like a spinning faceplant Alabama slammer type thing. The ref goes to do the count, and he hits his hand on the mat, and he realizes how much pain he's in, and he just shrieks in pain and can't keep counting. And they focus on Castle's face, and it's just great. I just thought it was a great spot. The injured fingers preventing the ref from making the count. I've never seen that before. The ref kind of rolls out of the ring in pain, and Skrull grabs his umbrella and just starts attacking Castle aggressively with the umbrella. He also hits 2 of the 2 boys with the umbrella, but then he keeps attacking Castle. Then he hits his finisher on Castle, and he covers him for the pin, and a replacement ref runs down. Skrull's been on Castle for probably 5 seconds. Ref gets in there, counts 2, and can't get to 3. Castle kicks out. So it's a good near fall. And Skrull's finisher is the Ghost Buster, I think he calls it, but it's basically a brain buster. So Skrull puts on the chicken wing. Castle kind of fights out of it. And then you think he's free, and then Skrull puts it back on, and Castle fights out of it again, more or less. And when he's about to reach the ropes, Skrull grabs his fingers and does a joint attack at that point. Then Skrull super kicks Castle a bunch of times, and then he runs into the ropes and goes for another one. Castle catches him, puts him in his finisher, which is, again, that spinning thing, face plants him, and gets the win. I actually thought this match was really good. I enjoyed it. I'd seen Skrull in a really good match before. I hadn't seen Castle in a really good match, but I thought this was very good showing for Castle. Showed some power moves, bled a little from his nose. It worked out for me, and I love this intro. So, excuse me, it worked great. So overall, this show was 4.5 hours long. And this is not their WrestleMania. This is a big show, but it's not their WrestleMania. It's too long. I'm just going to say it right now. It's sad because the wrestling that you did get was really good, but you could have just cut out an hour and a half and had that same really good wrestling at the top end. It would have been perfect. But it's hard to complain, right? You're saying, oh, I got too much good wrestling. I think back, there was one like filler match for a. I should have mentioned that which one was it? Yeah, the Motor City Machine Guns versus Beer City Bruiser and Brian Malonis versus PJ and Luke Hawk. That was a intermission filling match. It feels like if you didn't have that intermission, and I know why you do, but if you didn't have that intermission, maybe that would have helped the flow. But I don't know. This was a long card, but it shows that there's a lot of talent in this company, or in that company and a few others. It's certainly better than what, in my opinion, WWE presented for their big show. I'd have to say, if it wasn't for the length, this would probably be like a 9 out of 10 for me. Because of the length, it's realistically like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10, which is still very good. Your two big matches played out big, felt big. Everything was right about it. Your earlier matches had kind of impressive performances. I was totally impressed by Punishment Martinez. I didn't expect to be that impressed because I've heard the name before, but I was really impressed with him. I actually liked the first match a lot as an opener. It worked great. And Ibushi versus Hangman Page might have been the most, I think, I don't want to say tight, but like I really, really liked that match. So there's a lot of good stuff in between. The women's match was a big disappointment. I was hoping for more. But yeah, overall, like I said, 7.5, maybe 8. If that women's match was good, I might have gone higher too, but it's still pretty darn good. I'm sorry this review came in late. I'm going to try to be on time moving forward. Hopefully I don't catch another case of the death. And yeah, thanks for watching.